I want to thank everyone for joining us, and as we celebrate the 100th day of this new administration. When President Biden took the oath of office 100 days ago, he pledged that help was on its way. Now, thanks to our work together to enact the American Rescue Plan, help is here. The American Rescue Plan is delivering shots in arms, money in pockets, people in jobs, children in schools, and so much more here for our district and across the country. The United States has administered more than 215 million vaccines and counting. More than 85 million Americans are fully vaccinated. Half of the adults in the United States have received at least one vaccine. That is astonishing, and that's leading the world in getting our communities inoculated. Half of the adults in the US have received at least one dose. This is including more than 18 million vaccinated here in the state of Texas. The American Rescue Plan also recently sent $6 billion to local community health centers to help them distribute vaccines. That includes 13.4 million of health centers here in my district, in Congressional District 15 in our district, and more than 400 million to support 72 health centers in the state of Texas. So a lot of resources from the Biden administration have come our way. We've invested $130 billion to help schools reopen safely, stay open safely, and make up for lost earnings, and sent $39 billion to states to help keep childcare providers on the job and lower costs for working families. In the 15th District of Texas, we've helped secure over $1 billion for school funding. This is for teachers, kids, administrators, and essential workers to recover from this horrific pandemic that we've been dealt with for the past year and that we should continue to work our way out of. We created nearly 1 million jobs in March. As a CNBC said, job growth boomed in March at its fastest pace since last summer, as stronger economic growth and aggressive vaccination efforts contribute to a surge in hospitality and construction jobs. So we are blowing and going, and I think great things are about to happen and are happening every day. Each one of these numbers represents grandparents hugging their grandchildren for the first time in months, parents going back to work, teachers safely back in the classroom, businesses opening, workers and paychecks in their pocket. Those hardworking men and women here in South Texas and across our country are heroes for this recovery, and I'm proud to uplift one of these stories here today. One of our very own business owner who runs the iconic Cine El Rey here in McAllen, Texas, Bert Guerra. He was my virtual guest to this year's joint address. He's co-owner of Cine El Rey Theatre in McAllen, Texas, who many of you know here in our community, and shuttered in order to stop the spread of COVID during this pandemic. He was impacted directly and very hard. The American Rescue Plan, which we passed, included $16 billion to Save Our Stages Act, which was meant to help independent venue owners like Bert recover from this pandemic. And I'll tell you, I give so much credit to Bert because he was on our office from the very beginning, say, hey, businesses like ours are being left out and we're being impacted the worst. And we were able to communicate this to leadership. And eventually this bill came to the floor. Yesterday, President Biden delivered his first address to a joint session of Congress 100 days into his first term. In a typical year, I would invite a guest from Texas to join me sitting in the chamber. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we did it virtually. Hopefully, Bert, you can join me down the road in a real one when we're there all in person and back together again in a complete fashion. COVID-19 safety protocols meant this year's in-person attendance was limited, so we attended from where we were. Thank you very much. And now I want to introduce Bert Guerra to tell you his story and what he's been dealing with through this pandemic and how it's impacted us here in our community. Thank you. Bert, thank you for being with us, and you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Congressman Gonzalez. Yeah, it's been very unique situation for many businesses, but for the entertainment industry, we were the first to close, and we're probably going to be the last to open. And I think COVID made us realize that we're at a point where we'll probably have to adapt our industry also to survive. But of course, that's the human condition. We've always done that, and we're up for the challenge. But as things were starting to open up, we weren't getting any funding because we're very unique the way we have employees. We have a lot of freelancers, a lot of entertainers, a lot of gig workers. And so we weren't able to get the aid we needed based on the guidelines that were first presented. but you had a lot of companies getting aid. And to me, they were all the too big to fail type of companies. And it just seemed like we were just too small to win. So we actually joined an organization called NIVA, National Independence Venue Association, as a part of therapy group. It seems like we would get on Facebook and talk about issues. And I realized the issues I had in McAllen was the same issues New York had, LA had. We all had the same issues. So we advocated for the Save Our Stages. Actually, Save Our Stages was just a hashtag, and it became part of the actual bill. Of course, being located in Texas and Austin, it is the live music capital of the world. So a lot of venues sought after venues in Texas that say, hey, you need to raise your voice. Ironically, Cine El Rey is one of the senior members of NIVA, being one of the older venues and a national landmark. We were put in the forefront to be that voice. So it was a lot of pressure to make sure we contacted, because I don't think everybody wanted to help. They just didn't know we weren't getting help. And I think that was the biggest issue. So we had to.
I think you're right. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
We had to let you know, and you did carry the ball. The funding was there in December. It just hasn't got to us. So we were able to apply actually Monday. So and so now we're here.
Right, and we had some issues with the portal that have now been corrected, and it's up and running. So hopefully everybody who has been impacted like you will be able to get on and get resources they need to get going again and get their doors open, and hopefully I'm very optimistic that this next year we're just going to expand like never before. Our doors are going to open, our economy is going to thrive, and it'll be like the Roaring '20s again.
Yeah, what I liked about the president's speech last night was how he took so many great leaders that America had and laid down a foundation for me to feel more secure about our future. First of all, being a uniter like Lincoln was, and carrying the ball over to like FDR and creating these huge programs to get our economy going. I liked the optimism that he had, like JFK, about the future. But the most important thing that I think he said was, we cannot build walls high enough. And I think that's very important to quote Reagan, we're about tearing down walls, not building them. And I think it's very symbolic being located on the border. People really don't understand our area. And I think it's time for the valley, which is not a valley, it's a delta. And all the palm trees that are here are migrated here. They're not natural. We need to be more truthful about our history and take our own version and let people know who we are and what we are, and not be defined by outsiders. I think that's very important. And that was a great message. The rescue plan, that's exactly what he's doing. He's coming to rescue businesses like us. We sacrificed to close to keep people safe. The rescue plan is going to give us an opportunity to keep our future safe. And that's all we want. I think that's the American dream, is give us an opportunity and we'll take care of the rest.
Great, thank you. And thank you for all you do for our community. And you're a real American patriot. You've held the line, and you continue to keep the entrepreneurial spirit alive in our community, and employing people, and just doing everything that it takes to keep a community alive. So we want to thank you for all you do. And I don't know if we have people that wanted to ask any. Did we have questions on this coming, Jason?
Yes. Your first question is going to be from Mike Gibson at KIII. Mike, you're now allowed to talk.
All right. Thank you, Congressman, for doing this morning. You have a question. The president so far has either spent or wants to spend a total of $6 trillion. Do we have that money? Where is it going to come from? Will the average everyday taxpayer ever be affected by this in any way?
Yeah, well, we're a community that pays taxes, so obviously everyone is impacted at some point. But we're coming out of the pandemic of a century, probably the worst living disastrous period in history that any American has ever lived. That shuttered businesses, that closed our schools, divided families, created just our hospitals were busting at the seams. We've lost more Americans to this virus than we've lost in the last 5 wars. So the investment, I don't consider it an expense. The investment is justified in renewing the economy, and you got to consider we're still the largest economy in the world. a $3 trillion a year economy that will be more robust than ever in this next decade. And I think at the end of the day, this is all going to just we're going to be able to recover from the growth and continued revenues that our economy will produce, and we'll get past it. But without this investment, I think we'll be crippled, and we need to assure that American